Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright, hi friends. Today I bring another couch recommendation video to you, and this one is sponsored by my channel members. So every month when I remember, no I'm just kidding, I've been much better now at remembering, I put up a poll for my channel members to vote on a video topic that they would like to sponsor or a video that they really want me to focus on, because sometimes like I just can't narrow in on what I want to film, and I'm like, let's leave it up to the channel members. They'll know, they'll tell me what they want to watch, right? And so this time around I was feeling very smart that I'd just come up with a video idea that I hadn't done before, which, as you can tell the title, it's going to be my favorite monster book boyfriends or paranormal and stuff like that. And it turns out I've definitely done this video before. It was a few years ago, but I will link it up there if you want to check it out. I thought like, oh, I'm being so smart, and I've done it. So there is some overlap though, just gonna tell you, because I started making this list already. And when I do the types of videos that are like boyfriends or, you know, book husbands or my favorite women, like I include the ones that have stood the test of time, right? So that video from two and a half years ago, well, it would be in October, I think I did it. So like 2 or 3 years ago, you know, any book boyfriends that have hung around, you'll know that I really, really like them because I've read so many books since then. So we are going to dive into this. I included within this paranormal / monster because I think it can depend, as well as one of them, well, 2 of them are kind of outliers. Sorry. One of them because they don't quite, I wouldn't quite consider it paranormal, but also because what happens in them, it is. And then another one isn't technically a romance one, but I'm going to include it because it's monster / paranormal. And I will tell you when we get to that one. So we are going to go through and we're going to start at the top. So first off, probably my favorite monster book boyfriend, who the villain who gets the girl, is Lothair by Kresley Cole. And I do actually have 2 from her Immortals After Dark. I picked one vampire and one Lycae because I can't narrow it down to one, but if I have to pick, it's Lothair. But I was like, he's on my last one that I did, right? He is. And so I added another one. But Lothair, the enemy of old, he is the big baddie I mean, not the big baddie, but for a good portion of the story, he feels like he's the big baddie, right? But any cold-hearted, evil man can be undone by his fated mate, and that's what we get to see happen in this story. Now, as I always preface, you, of course, are allowed to do whatever you want. You have your big girl, big boy panties on, and you can start with Lothair if you want to. But part of the reason I and so many others are absolutely in love with this character is because of how we've seen him in the past. We've seen him when he's helped our people. We've seen him when he is adding up debt in his black book so that he can call it all in someday. And we've seen him hurt those that we care about previously, and then it's his turn. And we see him just royally step in it, on it, all over it with who is his fated mate, because he just doesn't believe that fate would do that to him, but he doesn't know what's best for him. He thinks he does. He thinks he's all-knowing and that he's the baddest cat out there, but he doesn't know everything. I don't know, maybe that was a weird explanation for this one, but this also is just very sexy. In my opinion, it's one of the sexiest ones in the series, but it also just has so many emotions and storylines coming together in this one that it really does behoove you to start at the beginning to work your way to this one, even though it'll take some time. It'll take some time because this is book 10 or 11 depending on how you're doing it, but you need that time to work up to him. You know, you're not as excited for his book if you get it right away, you know? So then, as I said, I wanted to include another one from the series, and this was actually really difficult because, like I said, it is clear in my mind that like Lothair is like my favorite, but then when I'm like, okay, well, who's on the second tier, it gets a little more difficult to choose because I like a lot of them at this level. So like I said, I wanted to pick a like A, and my favorite like A has to be Monroe. This also holds a special place in my heart because this is the first book that came out once I was a fan, and I got to do an ARC reading of this one. I just loved it so much, and I both listened to it when the audio came out. You know, I read it when an ARC of it in, man, was this 2022 already? Was it that far back? I'm not sure, but this was the first one that came out while I was already a fan, and that just meant so much to me to be here for Kresley's return to the series, and I just adore that. So yeah, this one is about Monroe McGreeve, and I don't want to go into too much detail because, again, this is book like 18 into the series, so there is a lot you have to do. But in an earlier book in the series, we see something, we know something awful happened to Monroe, and we've just been like, Kresley, are you going to tell us what's happening to him? Like, are you going to show us what's going on? And eventually we do get to see it. And this one involves some portal jumping through different worlds and things like that. And it involves a really badass, like, what was she called? I think it's just called a hunter. But her family, like, hunts evil, and to find out that, you know, your mate is a Like, which they see all, like, shifters, like, they see all magical beings as evil. They aren't, like, separating it. And, yeah, there's a few absolutely, like, gasp moments in this book, for sure. And it also has a really cool, like, cameos throughout the whole series I just love. So anyway, rambled about that enough. Monroe and Lothair are currently who I'd say are my top two from Immortals After Dark, but I love it. Then I have a lot of vampires on this list, I'll just tell you. It is most heavily vamps, but I included a few others. So another favorite vampire of mine is, of course, Reuben from Resting Witch Face. This is book 5 in the Stay a Spell series, and it is often to me that couples further on into a series are your favorite, or my favorite, because, you know, when an author is doing a interconnected standalone, I've seen more page time of Jules and Reuben as we get to him, right? Where with, like, Evie and Mateo, who love them so much, you just get thrown right in with them, right? Which is totally fine. That's wonderful. But yeah, I love this couple so much, but particularly Reuben, because he is that mate who waits and is patient. And I think it's even more interesting because this is a case of a second chance romance where they were finally getting a chance with each other. They were in, like, their late 20s. Well, she is anyway. He's older. He's a vampire, of course. And then something goes wrong, and it's not the right time for them to be together yet. And now Jules, she pretty much thinks she's, like, giving up what could have been her love, and is like, we just aren't suited. I have my work is too important. I can't have this man. Whereas Reuben knows that he's just going to wait, and he's going to wait until the time is right. And there's a really great quote he has in here where he eventually says, like, time's up, Juliana. Like, we've both suffered enough. It's time to work this out and be who we're supposed to be together. And I love it. Okay, I love it. Reuben is amazing. He's the kind of guy that names his business after some obscure reference that you both share together. And just that level of pining is severely underrated, right? Okay, then I want to include one that I haven't seen enough people talk about, and I understand why, because I just feel like this hasn't been pushed as much as I think it should. But the second half of this duet will be coming by the end of the year, Lord willing, and so you guys need to read this. The audiobook is out for it. You have no excuse. We have Feathers from the Sky by Jess Wisecup, and the second half of this one, which I think she already told us the name. I don't actually have it written down yet, but yeah, I loved this book so much. And this is about Gwen and Roman is a vampire, and Gwen is the child of vampire hunters. Now, in the beginning of this story, we see Gwen where, as far as we know, she doesn't know much of her heritage. She was born into that, and she no longer really has any family, and so she may have been the child of hunters, but she's not one. And then we have Roman, who his brother has disappeared, and he's trying to find him, and he figures out that she is a child of these hunters, and he wants to use her as leverage to find out about his brother. So they have they actually meet each other at a boudoir photo shoot, which I love. I just think that's such a cool way to begin this, because there is a photographer on Instagram I follow that she does these like mystery Sunday shoots where she pairs a couple together and they take photos together without having ever met. And she actually has had many dating couples and one marriage, like from the, anyway, I always tell that on the side, but I just think that's a clever way. But it's very interesting because Roman has a purpose for why he is getting close to her, and he's very sure that he is ruling the roost. And very soon into this, I'll tell you, very soon into this, Gwen is actually taken captive by Roman so that he can go about using her as said leverage. But I'll just say this, he doesn't have the full picture, and neither do we until the very last chapter of this. So yeah, I'm very excited for the second half of this one. This was just absolutely thrilling, and definitely catch up before the next one comes out. So yeah, Feathers from the Sky was amazing. It was amazing, y'all. It was so good. Okay, then I will throw this one in here because this is one of the ones that I said, I don't know if it quite fits. Now, this is a magical being who is a wizard, as it were. So you can see what I mean is, like, a lot of times I feel like Harry Potter fan fiction gets put in the fantasy category, but at the same time we have like witches, you know, and vampires, and that are in the paranormal category. It's a very fine line. So because I decided to include Draco Malfoy in my you know, paranormal book boyfriend list, because I have read probably more pages about versions of Draco Malfoy in the past few years than easily anything else, right? Hundreds and honestly millions at this point of words I've read about Draco Malfoy, and I just love him. Okay, so this isn't for Draco in one specific book. I like all different elements of him, but this is my book boyfriend list, and he needs to be on it if we're talking about paranormal / monster ones. And maybe I can even squeak it even more, because there is one I read recently where he was a vampire, so he doubly fits, I guess. Okay, now, oops, where'd it go? We'll share one of the other monster ones I have, and I'm going to share Eden from Lily Mayne. Yes, I often share Soul Eater so often because that is the first book in this series, and of course I want people to start there, but Eden is my favorite in the series. Like, honestly, it's my favorite in the series. I love that Eden is this big purple, big dicked, kilt wearing monster who falls. He's sunshine completely. And then there is Hunter, who is a grumpy ex-soldier. Well, he still is a soldier who is trying to rescue his friend. He has only seen the bad sides of monsters before, but Eden goes ahead and ruins all of that by rescuing him in the beginning. And so Hunter doesn't know how to deal with this big purple creature who just doesn't want to leave him alone and is flirting with him all the time and gets him a little tight in the pants, and he's not sure why. And I just love them. And like, this quote I think just sums him up. He says, "Don't worry, human, I think you're pretty." Because Hunter is a little self-conscious about his scar and some of his war wounds that he has. And this is also a hero too with a prosthetic leg, and I just love how the story goes. It's so good. It's so good. I love it. Okay, then I want to talk about Rain from Serpents and the Wings of Night. So the first 2 books in the Crowns of Nyaxia series are a duet that is complete, though the story is continuing. I was so blessed to get an ARC of the next book. I do have an e-ARC, and I really want to read it soon. It comes out in only a month, but I really want to continue. So in this one also has vampires in it, and we have Aurea, who is actually the daughter of the Nightborn Vampire King. And so she is actually, though, not vampire herself. And so that makes her a bit of a weakness to her adoptive father because, you know, she doesn't have the same powers or same strengths as him. And no matter how much she trains, she never will. However, there is this competition you can compete in, and it's called the Kajari. And if you win it, you may, like, I believe, ask for a gift is how it worked. It's been a hot minute since I read this, but you can ask for a gift. And, you know, her plan is to kind of be made a vampire, be made strong enough to be able to do that. Now, within this competition, it does behoove you to make alliances, though it is a little bit like a Hunger Games situation where you make alliances, but like only one person is supposed to win. So you have to be careful who you choose and pick someone strong enough to help you, but not so strong that you won't be able to like kill them in the end. And so she ends up pairing with Rain, who's a vampire and a killer and is an enemy to her adoptive father's crown, but they're gonna need to work together. So I really love Rain. This is also a case of like, this is like a reverse Grumpy Sunshine thing too, which in this case I understand why Aurea is like that because she has a lot stacked against her, and Rain does too. It's not like I would call him overly optimistic about things, but I definitely think he tries to like bring out some lightness in her. And I mean, she definitely pushes back a lot on him, but I love it. Okay, then I have 2 throwback men to share. And I don't have too much to say about these ones because it's been a long time since I read them. But when I was looking at all the I wanted to look at some of the classic paranormal like romances I'd read, and there was one from each of these series I like that really stands out as my favorite. So one is actually Julian of Macedon from Fantasy Lover. This is by Sherilyn Kenyon. And this series is kind of sort of a prequel to the Dark Hunter series, but it's the first one that I read. I didn't even know there was other ones because of the way it was set up. Because Julian isn't a Dark Hunter, but his best friend from ancient Greece does become one, and they actually meet up in the strangest of places in modern day, I believe New Orleans is where it is. But anyway, we have our heroine who she is lonely. I think she's only in her late 20s or whatever, and her friend gets her this book that supposedly houses a mythical lover. And I think it's on like the night of the full moon. You like say his name 3 times and he will appear and he'll stay with you until the next full moon, I believe. And then he has to go back in the book. And he was a Grecian warrior who was literally like cursed to be in this book. This warrior who is strong and proud and brave, and he's forced to basically be a sex slave, which is the cold hard truth about it. And so Grace, oh, I just remembered her name. It came out of nowhere. Grace is her name. She randomly decides to give this a go. She's drinking her wine and she says his name 3 times, and this naked, gorgeous man appears in her house, and she doesn't know what the hell to do with him. Now, she doesn't want to just have sex with this man, which that's what he showed up for, and he's absolutely baffled that she doesn't want to have sex with him because that's his whole purpose these days. And the only time he gets to be out of the book, like he was literally kept in a nothing space. He can hear things around the book and everything, but he's in a nothing space when he's not in the book. So it's actual like hell. So, you know, when he's out of the book, he just, you know, is supposed to pleasure his master, or mistress, whoever it is. And yeah, Grace instead decides to try to rescue him from this curse that he is. And they go about trying to find a way to do that. And as I said, we will run into people he actually knew way back in ancient times who have since become other type of paranormal beings, as it were. So that's a weird explanation for a book, but I first read this way back when I was like 14 or 15, and it was a book called Fantasy Lover. So yeah, but I love Julian, and he started that series off for me so well. And then the other I want to mention from a throwback one is Gregory from Dark Magic by Christine Feehan. And so this one I believe is book 3 or 4 in the Carpathian series, which was a series that I loved and I held on to for a really long time. I read those books, I devoured them, but I ended up getting burned out eventually. But Gregory was that one. In all of these types of series, right, there's that one being who's supposed to be the most evil, the most soulless, or, you know, is like barely holding on to any humanity. You know, like there was Lothair in the one. They exist kind of in all of those older series, and like Gregory was supposed to be the one. And so with the Carpathians, there haven't been any like women born in a long time. And in the first book of the series, which is Dark Prince, we actually have like the prince of the Carpathians finds a bride, and they discover that they can pair with a human and eventually turn a human woman. So instead of them needing to be born, they can make them. But the prince and his woman, they have a child. And when Gregory is called to help deliver the baby, because he is also like a healer of their people and he's very powerful, he cheats a little bit. And because he knows how important to his people he is, because if they fully turn, they will like destroy anything that's good. And he knows how important it is that he's able to hold on to his humanity. So when he's delivering that baby, he puts a little, like, I don't want to use the word seed because in that context it could be really weird, but he puts a little bit of like his essence around this child to make sure that she will one day be his mate, because he knows if fate doesn't give him a mate, he could become the greatest enemy to his people. Anyway, so by the time we get to his book, it's now been 20 years, and Savannah is the heroine, and she is a grown-up, and he's tried to wait to let her go to school to grow up to become a woman because, you know, but when you're timeless beings, like, you're timeless. So he waits as long as he possibly can, and he finally comes to claim her as his mate because he's right on the edge of it. And, like, the amount of times I've read Savannah and Gregory's story, like, I can't even tell you. I can't even tell you. It's amazing. So, okay, another monster to mention is, of course, Catan. He's always going to come up, okay? He's book boyfriend from the top. He's up there. He's in my regular list of book boyfriends, okay? I love him so much. Sorry, it's shiny, so we'll do this. But this is the Spider's Mate series by Tiffany Roberts, and it's fantastic. This is about Ivy, who wakes up on an alien planet that is inhabited by lots of dangerous things, as well as a race of beings called the Vricks, which basically look like giant spider people, which is very scary when you are a tiny, fragile human. And when Catan rescues her from the ship that crash landed there, he initially doesn't know what she is. They've never heard of humans before or seen such what he thinks is like weak and naked person. And as he like takes care of her and helps her heal, they start to try to figure out how to communicate with each other and eventually discover that they're fated mates. So this is the third one because I love the cover of this one the most. But it, of course, starts with Ensnared. I'll have links to all these books down below. The final one I want to mention, I said I had one that's not a romance, but because we are touching on paranormal / monster book boyfriends, I wanted to share this one. He's come back to mind because Big Sis, Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life, is actually reading this series right now, and so we've been talking about it a lot, and when I was making this list, he came to mind. So I want to share one of my book boyfriends is, let me find his picture, is Gabriel de Leon from Empire of the Vampire. who is the last silver saint, who is charged with trying to protect the Holy Grail that can save them from the world of night that is ruled by the vampires. They have subjugated humans, basically made them food and toys and objects of pleasure. And these silver saints are these types of like half vampire, only they only are sustained by this kind of like smoke that's, or this like tobacco type stuff that's made out of blood, so that they don't feed from people, because it can be very addictive to do that. But they are like tainted, well, how do I say it? They are like created with the strength of a vampire and all the like weaknesses of that as well. But the thing is because this is a world of night, like there's many places where vampires don't even have to like sleep during the day, right? Or do that. They also can enthrall people. And this is the second one, Empire of the Damned. Empire of the Vampires first, but this is the one that I just read. It's also a little bit like, it's not, the book's not shorter, but the book is thinner because they used Bible pages for this one. But I just love this story so much. But I don't know how it ends yet, is the thing. But so far, my favorites are all still around. But I don't know. But I know not all of you are as picky about if a book has to be a romance or not. But I'm telling you, there are some romances in here. But nobody has an HEA yet. I don't know who will or what will happen. But if we're doing paranormal book boyfriends, Gabriel De Leon has to be on the list because I just love him. So there you go, friends. That is my paranormal / monster book boyfriends, my bookish booze, if you will. Let me know some of your favorites. And again, I'll have links to all these down below. If you want to support what I do here, I have all the links for all the good things down there. But the most important thing you can do is like this video, subscribe for my content, comment, and share it if there's someone you want to spread the joy of my presence with. Thanks for watching, friends. Bye.